Happy Saturday. Today is February 8th. Thank you guys for joining for our first support group of this year for anger management, support around managing your anger or helping your loved ones to manage their anger. Thank you for joining. I am Dr. Jamila Banks, and I'm a licensed holistic marriage and family therapist. I am a trauma-informed therapist, which means I have lots of information and lots of tools, and my specialty is working with trauma, people that have been diagnosed with PTSD or have some sort of trauma or pain in their background, in their childhood. I am also certified in anger management, so I'm an anger management specialist. I'm certified in anxiety management and anxiety treatment, in grief treatment, meditation and mindfulness, and also DBT, which is skills training to help you cope with your with your emotions and deal with your emotions. So although I am specialized in trauma-informed care, I'm also certified in various areas. And today we are going to be talking about anger and managing your anger effectively, learning how to recognize your anger, and tools and techniques that you can help, cope with your anger. So if you signed up and registered for this support group, you should have received 2 ebooks. You should have received an ebook, and the first one was entitled Abolishing Anger, and that talks about anger from the root of it. And so you have that to go along with this support group. And then we also gave you 5 habits to go from chaos to calm. So those habits and some of those things and those ebooks that you received, we're going to be talking about today. If you did not get those ebooks, simply drop your email in the chat or email me and we will get you those ebooks. So today, once again, we are going to be talking about anger, okay? And I'm just going to give you a brief introduction to the topic, and then we're going to go around and I'll give you guys a chance to unmute if you can and introduce yourselves. If you can't, that is fine. No worries. Okay, so this 1-hour session is designed to help you understand, manage, and transform anger into constructive forces for personal development and growth. Through self-awareness, emotional regulation techniques, practice, and tools, you learn how to respond better to your anger in healthier ways. So that is the overall, the intent of why we are here. So the goals of this session are to identify and understand anger triggers, to recognize the early signs of anger and when your anger is escalating, to develop coping mechanisms to manage and express your anger in healthier ways, in a healthier manner, to improve your communication and your conflict resolution skills, to learn how to support your loved ones, family, and friends while maintaining your own emotional balance when they're angered or triggered, and to understand when it's time to seek professional help, when it's time to seek therapy or training or classes or support around anger. So that is the training goals for this session. And once again, thank you for joining. I left one paper to the side. Hold on one second. Okay, so uncontrolled anger. So why are we here? What are we really addressing? Uncontrolled anger, because we all get angry. We have a range of feelings, from sadness to doubt to insecurity to excitement to joy to exhilaration. So anger is just one emotion out of many emotions that we can experience, but it's one that we experience often. So while we all have anger and we can all experience anger, we are here to address the pain point of when anger is being destructive, when anger is taking over your life or your loved one's life, or when it's uncontrolled anger. So, uncontrolled anger can lead to workplace conflict, strained relationships, reduced productivity, and emotional distress. Many people struggle with expressing anger in healthy ways, resulting in negative personal and professional consequences. So again, uncontrolled anger can interrupt your workplace, okay, and your workplace dynamics. How you deal with your team, how you deal with other employees, how you deal with clients. It can interrupt and cause destruction in your personal relationships with your friends, with your family members, and uncontrolled anger affects your mental well-being. And those key issues that we want to address is, what is anger? Strong emotional responses to perceived, like what you're perceiving, experiences, leading to aggression or frustration. Triggers. What are triggers? Situations or interactions that provoke anger, such as conflicts, unmet expectation, and stress. So these are terms that we're going to be going over. Poor regulation, which is difficulty managing your emotions, which can result in impulsivity or destructive behavior. So we are here to understand what anger really means, the different levels to anger, what triggers might be, and then we're here to talk about solutions. We don't want to just talk about it. We want to know how to effectively address it, cope with it, deal with it, redirect it so it doesn't hurt us or others around us. So this anger management support group is going to give you those tools to help recognize your anger, to help you recognize others' anger, others around you, to help you regulate your own emotions, to help you co-regulate when you're dealing with somebody else's emotions. By fostering that self-awareness, by becoming aware of these things, you can have actionable strategies that you can employ, that you can practice to help you train yourself and train others to manage your anger more effectively. Okay, so that is why we are here. And the benefits of this, it can help you enhance your awareness. So when you recognize your own anger and when you are getting dysregulated, it can help you understand when you see those around you getting angry and what their triggers are, what your triggers might be. It can help you enhance your communication skills so you can be able to express yourself, more healthy when you're angry, or express to others when you're recognizing that they're angry, and it improves your relationships along the way. So that is why we are here. So I want to open it up really quick. If you can unmute yourself and just introduce yourself, what your name is and where you are calling from. What your name is and where you're calling from. Go ahead. I'm going to open up the floor.
Hey Jamila, it's XTC.
Hi, happy Saturday.
Happy Saturday. Thank you so much for doing this for us. And we just love all of your formulas and your key points, just for our restoration, for our emotions. Calling from LA, but right now I'm traveling, so.
Okay, well, thank you for joining in while you're traveling. I appreciate that. Thank you for being here. And hopefully you gain something to take away from this experience.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay, anybody else want to unmute and introduce yourself, what your name is and where you're calling from? And you don't have to. I'm just encouraging. It's a small support group, and we are here to support each other.
Hello, I'm Kirsten.
Hi.
Laverne in California.
Thank you for joining. We appreciate you being here.
Hey, how you doing? We're Todd, another H-Town, and then strong support.
Thank you.
And what I could take from you.
All right. Well, thank you for showing up. I appreciate you being here.
Hi, I'm Destiny, and I'm calling from home.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here. We're
Hi.
Hi.
This is Patricia White. I'm happy to join the meeting. Brandy's joining right now.
Okay. Well, thank you both for being here. We appreciate you joining us. Happy Saturday.
Happy Saturday to you.
Okay. Anybody else want to introduce themselves and where they're calling in from?
Hello everyone. My name is Ivy. I'm calling from Nigeria. And I'm so glad to be here. Thank you so much for this time, Ella.
Hey, Ivy. Dialing all the way in from Nigeria. That's my girl. Thank you for joining us. I know we are 9 hours apart, and I appreciate you, girl. Thank you. All right. Anybody else?
Hi,
Hi. Who are you?
I'm Brandy and I'm joining from Hammett.
Hi. Nice to see you. Happy Saturday.
Happy Saturday.
Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? Going once, going twice? All right. Well, yes, I am Dr. Jamila Banks again, licensed marriage and family therapist, holistic therapist, dialing in from California, Hammett, California. And we are here for Anger Management 101, our first support group of the year. Thank you all for joining. And let's just kick it off. Now that we know why we are here and who's in the room and what we are discussing, we are going to jump right in. And this is our icebreaker of the session of the support group. Describe a time when you felt angry and how you handled it. Now, as the person that's actually leading the group, I'm going to lead by example. And I will go ahead and express my, example first. And then I'll open it up to anyone that wants to join. Again, it's no pressure, but we are supporting each other. And the only way to support each other is to be honest and authentic and be open to learning and growing with each other. So, okay, a time when I felt angry. This week, I felt angry and I walked away. That's how I handled it, and you don't have to give the specific example if you don't want to. You don't have to give all the details. But a lot of the times, the root of some of my anger is feeling like I'm not good enough. I've identified something that triggers me. And if I'm in a situation and someone is talking to me and they're saying things and it triggers me to, I feel I am not good enough. I'm taking responsibility of my triggers. The person is saying stuff, and it could be right, it could be wrong. But whatever they're saying, I feel that I'm not good enough, or I feel like, because no one can make you feel anything. That's what we're here to discuss too. You feel some type of way because there's something rooted in you. So for myself, when I feel that people are saying type of things that, that I am not doing, or that I haven't done right, or that I don't do well, I get triggered and feeling that I'm not good enough. And so typically, if I try to over-explain myself and I feel like if somebody is not hearing me, they're not listening to me, then I get angry. And so that happened this week. And one of the ways I tried to handle my anger was I walked away. So there are many different things that we can do. And that was one of the things that I did to try to handle my anger in that moment. I walked away from the situation. Does anybody else want to describe a moment that they felt angry and how they handled it? Good, bad, ugly. We're not here to judge. We're here to support each other. Does anybody have a time that they want to share?
Hi.
Hi.
Okay, so I have younger siblings, and babies can be very not aware of like what they're doing with their bodies. So sometimes they'll hit you, they'll smack you, they'll grab you, they'll grab your hair. They're very violent on purpose, but they can hurt you pretty bad. And my pain response, I've learned, is anger. Some people will cry, but I get very angry when I'm hurt. But I just try to remind myself in the moment, like, what I say and what I do is permanent. Like, what I'm thinking on the inside, that's not going to affect anyone, but how I react, I know has an effect. And I know that it's not as big as it feels, because I know my body is just responding to the pain. So I try to remind myself that the future and how I react and what I say and what I do is more important than like the physical, thing that's happening to me.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. That takes a lot of awareness to recognize that it's a temporary feeling. And I appreciate you sharing that, because oftentimes we get upset. Like you said, I done got slapped in my sleep. And I get upset, and it does hurt, and it does sting. And this is by a 5-year-old, guys. Nobody's slapping me in my sleep. My baby is still in the bed. And I do get angry, especially if I'm really asleep and I'm just waking up. And then I'll have to calm myself down really quick, and I'll be like, ow. And I'm like, yes, you know what? This is temporary. This too shall pass. That is a mantra. That is another tip to deal with anger. A mantra that you can repeat to calm yourself down. So oftentimes when I am angry like that awareness that Kirsten just described, this is a temporary thing. This hurts right now. This is not permanent. It's not going to last always. This too shall pass. So that is something, I can't smack the baby back, because that would be anger and that would be destructive. And, so that is something that I practice. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. Does anybody else want to describe a time when they felt angry and how they handled it? I saw somebody's hand went up, so you can go ahead and unmute and speak if you want to.
Hi.
Hi, and speak up.
Oh, okay, sorry. I want to share a time. Can you hear me well?
I can hear you.
Okay. I want to share a time that I experienced this week in school where someone had made me upset, and I wanted to make a decision, but I knew that it was bad, and I had to think about how it's going to affect me in the future, because I didn't want to have to change schools or have to deal with the consequences for my parents as well. So instead of making that bad decision that I really wanted to, I thought about the future and how this is going to affect me and affect others around me. So.
Okay, I like that. So you were aware, and you didn't just jump into something. You were aware that there would be consequences for your actions. So you practiced that awareness, and that made you think about the consequences that might happen, and it made you choose to respond differently. That's what you said?
Yes.
Okay, great job. I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, we have to be aware. Sometimes our nervous system, when we get angry, and we'll talk about this in a second, we go into fight or flight and we react. So awareness, meaning knowing what you're thinking and why, and practicing a pause in between when you get angry and doing something. When you get angry, when you do, you react. When you get angry and you think, you respond. You give yourself a pause, and that pause can be the difference in you reacting and making the situation worse, or reacting and the situation better, or you just dealing and coping with the situation. So I appreciate that. Okay, I see your hand is raised. Go ahead and speak up. When is a time that you were angry, and how did you deal with that?
Hi,
You guys might have to go in different rooms if you're in the same room.
sorry about that.
No worries, go ahead.
The time I got angry was yesterday. I didn't agree with something someone said, so I got into a little argument with them, and I was kind of angry about it. but then I realized that can ruin our friendship. So I tried to apologize, and I tried to tell them why I didn't agree with it. And then I solved the problem with them, and we're still friends.
Oh, I love that. So you thought about the value of that relationship and that friendship. And even though you were upset, you knew that you valued that person. So you didn't want to make the situation worse. You thought about how you could make it better and deal with your anger, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good job. I'm proud of you for that. Thank you for sharing. Does anybody else want to share? And if not, no worries. We'll move forward.
I do.
Hi.
Hi. My name is Nair, and one time I got mad was when Legend spent all my money on a game. But I didn't react because I knew I could just get more money on the game later.
Aww. I'm so proud of you. You know, I understand how that could be upsetting. Somebody's spending all your money on something else. And I appreciate how that you didn't get so upset at him and that you realized, hey, this happened, but I can get some more money and I can be able to spend that money. So good job with that. I think you handled that well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Does anybody else want to share? And if not, no worries. 1, 2, 3. Okay, forever hold your peace. All right, so thank you guys for sharing. You know, I know it is scary to speak out loud about our flaws, about our mistakes, about our pain, about our worry, about things that we don't necessarily want to show the world. So every time you speak up, you are brave and you are bold. So I appreciate everyone that shares. And then even if you don't want to share, you are brave and you are bold for being here. So just being in the room and hearing other stories, you know, that will give you the confidence to continue to work on your stories to be able to share them. So thank you guys for sharing. All right, so anger, once again, it is a natural emotion. We all experience anger. When managed properly, it can be a catalyst. A catalyst is something that sparks something. So we all have anger. Remember, it's natural. But we want to use it in a productive way, in a positive way, for positive change. So let's say, you know, someone says something to me and I get so upset and I punch the wall. I might make a hole in the wall that I have to repair. I might hurt my fist or like my wrist and my fingers or something like that and not be able to write for a few days. And that made the situation worse. It did not make it better. I'm still probably angry and now I'm hurt. It did not solve anything. Versus if someone makes me angry and I walk outside the door and I go take a walk outside. I get some endorphins, I get some serotonin, I get some dopamine, I release some stress. I maybe see some beautiful trees or flowers outside, hear some birds chirping. I can calm down. That is positive and productive. That is healthy. That is helping my bloodstream, my digestive system. So by going to take that walk, that was a catalyst for positive change and healthy responses to that anger versus punching that wall. So there's many different ways that we can respond to the natural feeling of anger. So now let's get a little bit deeper into anger. Anger is a biological and physiological response that originates in your brain when we perceive a threat, frustration, or injustice. So when we are threatened, it doesn't have to be a physical threat where someone is going to hit you or hurt you. It can be an emotional threat where you feel like someone is taking away your freedom. It can be a financial threat where you feel like somebody is taking away your money. A frustration, someone says something and you do something and you feel frustrated. Or an injustice where you feel like somebody crossed the boundary, where you feel like someone actually did hit you or hurt you, and it's unjust. So anger originates in our brain because we perceive these things as threatening, frustrating, or an injustice. So when we feel this way, it links us to our fight or flight response. And there's also something called fawn. So there's fight, flight, and fawn. And these are mechanisms that our nervous system, actually does automatically. We have our automatic nervous system. And when we feel threatened, when we feel frustrated, when we feel like some injustice has happened, our nervous system automatically responds. Now, back in the day, this was to ensure our survival. When we were living out in the wilderness and there was lions and tigers and bears just running around and different tribes that were threatening us, our ego would have us go into fight and flight to protect ourselves, okay? So fighting, trigger perception, the brain, especially your amygdala. Now, we won't get all into the science of it, but the brain perceives a situation as threatening, unfair, or frustrating. That's the first thing. That's the trigger. The brain says, oh my God, we're about to die. Oh my God, we're about to be hurt. The brain says that. Then the hormones, a hormonal activation, your hormones react. The body releases stress hormones like adrenaline or cortisol, preparing you to take action. So once again, when you are angry, this is a biological and a physiological response that your brain and then your body is going through. Your brain perceives the trigger. Your body activates hormones like adrenaline or cortisol, and it's preparing you to do something. So your physical reaction, what your body is going to do, your heart rate increases, your muscles tense, you start to breathe faster, and you're like heightened alert. Your alertness, becomes heightened. And so then you have to choose. You have to choose how to respond. Your response selection is based on your parents, how they responded when they perceived danger, TV, socialization, how peers around you responded, how TV shows that you watch showed you and taught you how to respond. So your response selection, how you choose to respond, is based on people, places, and things, and how you're taught and nurtured in nature. So your prefrontal cortex, your rational thinking area, has been taught some things. So it determines on whether you're going to fight, put it up, or, express your anger aggressively, or where you're going to flight, where you're going to flee, avoid confrontation, or fawn, which is freeze and you just sit there and you hope it passes by. Or if you're going to manage your emotions effectively. So we have different responses that we're going to go into naturally. However, how our parents, how society, how socialization around us, what we've learned is going to affect those responses. So first, we want to be able to identify our personal anger triggers. Stress, unmet needs, past trauma. These things are triggers that affect you. So anger triggers, what are they? Specific situations, thoughts or emotions that provoke frustration or rage. Your anger triggers, they're specific. They help you either gain better control over your emotions or you lose control over your emotions. So by learning your triggers, it can help you control them, or, you just are reacting, not responding. So common anger triggers: stress and overwhelm.
That's right.
Yes. High workload, financial strain, lack of sleep. These can lower your emotional tolerance to things. So for example, you had a rough day at work, and when you get home, your kids are arguing loudly. You step on some toys. You snap at them because your stress level is already high because you were angry at work. And so when you came home and they're arguing and you step on a toy, it's easier for you to overreact and be overwhelmed and react in anger because you're stressed out already. Raise your hand or say yes if you've ever had stress and overwhelm as a trigger. Now that we identified it, raise your hand. All right, I see. Thank you. I see lots of hands are raised. So that is a common anger trigger. Being stressed or overwhelmed. And all of us in this room are raising our hands. Okay. Another common anger trigger. Remember, we're identifying these things so we can address them. Another common anger trigger. Unmet expectations. When things don't go as planned. When people don't act as we expect. It can cause frustration. So, for example, you expect a friend to support you through a difficult time. But that friend does not reach out and they are nowhere to be found. You are disappointed. You are upset. That disappointment and that upsetness can turn into anger. Now, we're not going to even talk about the whys because we perceive things and sometimes we just assume things and we don't even understand that maybe on the other side of that, that friend can be going through something else. But we're not going to go there. We're just talking about the trigger. Unmet expectation. You expected I'm going through this rough time. I expected my friend to be there by my side. She's not here. You get disappointed. You get angry. That is a trigger. Raise your hand if you ever had an unmet expectation as a trigger. Because I have. I expected certain things and I was rudely awakened and I was disappointed and that led to anger. So that's a trigger for some people. Okay. Past trauma and unresolved issues. That can also be a trigger. For example, experiences from childhood, past relationships. They shape your emotional responses. If you've been in a situation before, in the past, we record that. So example, for me especially, if you grew up in a household where yelling was common, you may instinctively react the same way in conflicts. So that is one of my triggers. I grew up in a household where there was lots of anger. I grew up in a household where there was domestic violence. And in conflict, anger and yelling was used. So I tend to act the same way in conflict. I tend to yell and get loud and my anger is expressed in yelling and getting loud because that's what I saw. But I've identified that trigger and that is something that I consistently work on. But that is one of my triggers. So raise your hand if that is something that, a trigger, a past trauma or unresolved issue is one of your triggers. 2 fingers up. Another trigger can be feeling disrespected or powerless. Situations that make you feel ignored. Situations that make you feel belittled. Situations that make you feel powerless can trigger anger. So for example, your boss, you worked hard on a project. You worked hard on these ideas for this meeting and you go to this meeting and you present your ideas and you're so proud about the ideas that you put on the table and your boss just dismisses it. Doesn't even look into it. Doesn't even say great ideas. Doesn't even say thank you for bringing that to the table. And you feel unheard. You feel undervalued. That is a trigger. Has anybody ever felt disrespected or powerless? Looks like we all have some of the same triggers in the room. All right, so another one more that we're going to go into before we move forward. Lack of control. When we feel we have no control over a situation, when we feel like we are just powerless and we are just left to the devices of others, anger can arise. So for example, a delayed flight. You have travel plans to go to Hawaii and your flight is delayed and you will lash out at the airline staff, even though the airline staff have nothing to do with the weather and nothing to do with the airplane, and it's not their fault, but you lash out because you feel like your lack of control. The flight is not taking off, you have no control and you mad and you angry. Raise your hand if you have felt this trigger before.
Yeah.
All right. So it doesn't have to be that specific example. This is just saying you have been triggered before by a lack of control. You felt like you could not control a situation and you just, got triggered, right? Okay. So those are some example triggers, that we can think about. And so I want you to take this, and I don't want you to do this now, but in your journals or on your paper, because we asked to get a journal or a piece of paper so you can take some of these things with you. I want you, at a time when you have about 5 minutes or 10 minutes where you're alone, I want you to write down 3 situations that consistently make you feel angry. Meaning, these are 3 situations that have been repetitive. It's happened once, it's happened twice, it's happened 3 times. I want you to pick 3. Write down 3 situations that consistently make you feel angry. Last month, the other month, last year. This is a situation. 3 situations that make you feel consistently angry. Once you have those 3 down, I want you to look at each 3. I want you to try to identify the underlying reason, the underlying trigger. We just talked about all the triggers. So are you getting triggered because, you feel like you have a lack of control? Are you getting triggered because you feel like you're disrespected or you feel powerless? Are you getting triggered because you feel like, that you have unmet expectations? That you're this is making you upset because your expectations is not getting met. Are you feeling like this is past trauma or unresolved issues? Are you feeling like this situation could be stress and overwhelm? So 1, identify 3 situations that keep happening, right? Consistently. Look at each situation and try to identify the underlying reason. Because you can say, he made me angry because he said this. That's surface. We're trying to get to the root of your anger. So I want you to, is it stress? Is it unmet expectation? Are you feeling disrespected? Past trauma, unresolved issue, stress, overwhelm. And then the last thing I want you to do with this, the next thing is think about how you typically respond. Do you yell? Do you curse? Do you have an attitude? Do you walk away? Do you slam doors? Do you name call? I want you to think about how you typically respond in this situation. And then identify, does it help the situation or does it make it worse? So again, we're writing down 3 situations that consistently make you angry. You're identifying the underlying reason, the trigger. You're thinking about how you typically respond. How do you normally respond? Is that helping the situation or is it making the situation worse? So once you've done those things, the strategies that I'm going to give you is going to help you reframe your anger triggers to respond differently. So again, you're going to put all those things, and then what we're going to work on now, when you do this exercise, you're going to have the tools to help reframe your mindset and to develop healthier responses, okay? So that is an activity that we are going to practice, that you're going to take with you. And so these that we're going to go over right now are going to be the tools that you're going to use to help manage this more effectively in the future. Does anybody have any questions before we go on? No?
No.
Okay. So, before we get into the actual how to reframe, I want to have a note really quick for recognizing your triggers. Okay, so we just talked about some of those triggers. Now I want you to think there's a way that you can recognize the buildup of your anger. there's a way that you can prevent escalation sometimes. So you know how we say 0 to 100 real quick? It doesn't have to be real quick. If you can identify these triggers, if you can identify your expectation, but if you can recognize early signs. So sometimes when I'm triggered, my heart rate increases. I can feel my heart beating faster. Sometimes when I'm beginning to get angry and I'm triggered, the early sign is my fists. I start clenching them. Even if I'm sitting down, I start clenching my fists. I start playing with my bracelets. I start playing with my wrists. I start fiddling with stuff. I start grabbing pencils and pens and trying to write. Rapid speech. When I'm beginning to get angry, I notice I talk a little bit faster. I'm breathing harder. I'm talking faster. These are pre-signs that I'm recognizing. And sometimes I can recognize them and I can de-escalate myself before I even get there. So for de-escalating, when you recognize those early warning signs that you're about to be triggered, this is before you go off and start cussing and fussing and all the things. If you recognize that your heart rate is increasing, that your fists are clenching, that, you're sweating, your sweat is on your forehead, sweat is dripping under your arms, you're talking faster, I'm going to encourage you, the first thing, try to exit that environment. If you're at work and in a meeting, excuse yourself to go to the restroom. If you're at home and you're talking to a loved one, excuse yourself to go to the restroom. If you are in the car talking to someone, but you can't excuse yourself, maybe you can say, can we just take a time out really quick? I need a timeout. And I'm going to encourage you to take 4 breaths in slowly and 4 breaths out slowly to help you kind of regulate your nervous system. And that's a pause that you can do. Hey, Brandy, I see you raising your hand. You want to add something to that?
I was going to ask, what happens if, the other person is still really angry and, they still want to talk about it?
Well, you can ask them, can we table this and can we take a break? And you can try to walk away. Now, if the person keeps following you and keeps talking, you can't control that. All you can control is you. And then I would suggest maybe you let them spin their wheels and keep talking and exhaust themselves, and maybe not try to interrupt and react in anger. And maybe if they can exhaust themselves and get everything out that they want to say, then maybe you can say, okay, I heard you. Can we take a pause? Because I think we're both kind of angry right now. Maybe you just identified, I'm feeling kind of upset right now. Is it okay? Can we, now that you said everything that you had to say, can we pause this and do something else? And so can we take a time out? So you can ask them, can you take a time out? And then if they don't want to take a time out, respectfully, you can let them finish talking. But if they won't let you take a time out, they won't let you walk away, and they keep talking, you might just have to let them say what they need to say. And then since you are the age that you are, you might have to go talk to your grandmother, or you might have to go call an adult to help rectify the situation, because you can't control other people. All you can control is yourself. If you're an adult, I would just say leave the environment. If you have to leave the environment, you have to leave the environment. If somebody won't let you calm down, all you can control is you. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, you can always say let's pause. I agree. It doesn't mean that we're not going to talk about this. It doesn't mean that we're not going to get back to this. But, let's take a pause is a good thing, to help try to de-escalate a situation when you're recognizing that you're triggered. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so again, reframing. Instead of reacting impulsively, recognize that your stress level is high and it's lowering your patience. If you are stressed out, your patience is low. That's a tip right there. You're not going to have high patience with people, places, and things if you're already stressed out. So you need to prioritize your self-care and your regulation. So a healthy way that you can respond is just pause before reacting. So in my head, I'm going to count to 10. So you can be looking at me and I'm going to be like, and I'm pausing and I'm counting to 10. So you are going to see me doing that. And hopefully if you are in that confrontation with me, you see I'm trying to pause. You see I'm trying to calm down. You know, another way you can set a boundary, you know, if this is at work, you can set a boundary and then you have to make your work time. If you have to work during these times, then you have to put a buffer before and after so you can be practicing your breathing and practicing around, are you taking work home? Now, if you're doing homework, obviously that's for home. But if you're getting stressed out and overwhelmed, you might just take a break. You might just take a pause. If you're feeling like you're overwhelmed and you're feeling like you're getting angry at your work, take a pause, go to the restroom, splash some water in your face, and take some deep breaths, okay? Exercising, meditating, journaling. These are things that create a buffer. These are things that create space. These are things that create, you know, that zone that you don't go from 0 to 100 real quick. So no, in the middle of arguing or, you know, having a confrontation, you're not going to drop down and give me 20. You're not going to, you know, just start getting a rope and jumping rope. But before, because we're talking about things that we can do to calm down, to de-escalate, to, you know, when we're recognizing things or even before situations happen. So if you're constantly, you know, before you're angry, you know, before you're in situations, exercising and journaling and meditating and you're practicing your self-care, you're still going to get angry, but these are things that you put in place that help buffer you, you know, and help you give pauses in between that anger. So again, you come home after work, your kids is arguing, you're stressed out, you know, you yell at them immediately because you're already overwhelmed. That's one way that you could respond. But if that situation is one of those situations that you wrote down that happens consistently. So I'm going to say, for me, when I come home and it's stuff everywhere, it's stuff here, it's stuff there, it's trash here, I step on something, you arguing, you fighting, I have a tendency to yell, hey, you know, what's going on? Or why is this stuff on the floor? Why is the house so dirty? So I recognize, I am recognizing that is a trigger for me. So that will be one example that I will be writing down. So instead of walking into the house, I see the same trigger. I hear the same arguments. I'm going to take a deep breath. I'm going to go upstairs and put my stuff down. I'm going to go in the bathroom and take some deep breaths. I might splash some water on my face and give myself a time, like 1 minute or two, to just regulate myself and relax. Then maybe go downstairs where I don't have to yell and curse and scream. Hey guys, can you pause? Can you calm down? Can you table this? You know, I see the table. It has lots of homework and trash on it. I stepped on something when I came in. Can we take a break and clean up a little bit? So can you see how I didn't just walk in and I started yelling? The same situation is making me upset. But now I identified that that's a trigger for me. So now what I'm going to do to control me, what if the kids are still yelling and arguing? What if it's still stuff on the floor? I can't control that automatically, but I can go in there and splash water on my face. I can take some deep breaths. I can calm myself down so then I don't have to speak in anger. So that is a way that I can do something differently to work on this situation that keeps repeating itself. Did everybody understand that? Does anybody have any examples that they want to share? You don't have to share them. But if you have an example that you want to share, that you've noted, you can. Go ahead and unmute and you can share your example.
One of the examples I had for when I was getting angry was I took deep breaths, and I kind of just tap my fingers.
Okay. So where did you learn that at, girl?
From a book you gave me.
You learned that in therapy, and you learned that from a book. That is another coping skill. That is another tip. Reading. You can read different things that'll help give you tips and tools on how to work with your anger and how to calm down. You know, use talking to a friend, talking to a counselor. Learn some new things and put that in practice. I love that for you. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
Anybody else know the situation that frequently triggers them or frequently makes them upset, that they've analyzed the root of it and maybe something that they can do differently?
I found when I ask, usually my siblings, but when I ask someone to do something that's like very easy and it will obviously help me, and then they like don't do it, that usually upsets me because it doesn't take a lot of effort and it's helpful. So it makes me feel personally disrespected. And I found recently that going to exercise and getting my feelings out physically in a way that helps build my body and keeps me active is a good replacement for, you know, other things that aren't so productive.
Okay. I like that. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. And remember, guys, this is a practice. So everything that we're talking about today, this is not going to be you do it one time and then that's just it. And then remember, anger is natural. So you're not going to not ever get angry. We are just trying to identify our triggers, why we get angry. Yes, you can say, he said this and that made me angry. However, emotional regulation is a self thing. It is something that you can control. So if you give your power away and you're letting someone else control your emotions, then that is another personal problem. And that's why we're talking about, if the person still says the same things and does the same things, what can you do differently to manage your emotions? What can you do to recognize your triggers? What can you do to actually manage yourself and help yourself feel better, regardless of what someone else is saying or doing? So thank you. Anybody else want to share before we move on?
I would say I have really bad road rage, and it's like, this isn't cool, because at the end of the day, the destination on my map on my phone says that it's going to take this long, but at the same time, it's like, oh, I need to get there in a hurry, or I don't give myself enough time, and I'll be in such a positive mood, but then the first car that just cuts me, or I'm blocked by all these red lights, I'm so emotionally frustrated, and I feel like I could get in like a lower dimension within seconds, just because I'm driving, and everything else I'm fully in control. But when it's driving, you know, I've noticed it's just I think it's more of an anxiety level, because I'm trying to make sure that I'm there on time.
Yeah.
And right, and it's the signals, it's just crazy. But at the same time, I've found that putting on my worship music, knowing that when I get there, like, I'm going to give my all, my 100%, and if I'm late by a couple minutes, I'm hoping that, you know, just I could make up for that in any way I can. And I think that's just like something that a lot of us could possibly deal with. It's just the road. I don't know if it's just me or not, but
yeah, I agree. And I like how you already were looking into ways that you can deal with that more effectively. Because once again, it's not about the car driving and cutting you off or not signaling, because people will be people. People, places, and things are going to happen outside of your control. This is about how you react and respond. So one way, how you said, I can respond to these situations that keep happening to me. I can leave earlier. If you want to be on time for something, leave earlier. Give yourself that time to where if it's traffic, If people are rushing, you have left earlier, so you don't need to be in a rush. So people can be rushing around you, but you gave yourself an extra 15 or 20 minutes, so then their rush doesn't have to affect you. That is one way that you can cope with it. Another way that she said that she copes with it is by putting on her worship music, putting on some affirmations, putting on things that get you in the space to where if things are happening outside of you, we cannot control the drivers. We can only control our car and what's going on in our car. So if we know that people drive crazy, let's listen to some music, not some heavy metal rock music that's going to put me into aggression. Let me put some music on that's going to have me thankful and grateful and in a spirit of a good, peaceful space. Another thing that I want to help you remember, we do not know what's going on in that other car. Just like nobody knows on what's going on in our car. There have been times I have been distracted in whatever I'm thinking about and I missed the stop sign. Now that was my fault. Anything could have happened. I was distracted. There have been emergency situations where I have been driving hectically to try to get somewhere, to help someone. So you can also refrain. You do not know what's going on with somebody else. They could have lost their grandmother. Their friend could be in the hospital. They could be going to chemo. They could be going to court to deal with a divorce. They could be. Just like you are in your car, in your own perspective and mind, trying to get to where you need to go. They don't know where you're going, just like you don't know where they're going. So once again, let's be mindful. That person that drove and cut you off, that flicked you off, you don't know if their parent just died. You don't know if their spouse just walked out on them. You don't know if they just got fired. I'm not saying that it's okay for them to cut you off. I'm saying that we are all going through anger and anxiety. So just as you give yourself grace, because you should be giving yourself grace when you are anxious and overwhelmed, I think the practice of giving other people grace would help too. So there have been times where people have cut me off. And I will look, and sometimes I wanted to speed up and catch up and be like, And there are other times that I'm like, you know what? Obviously they are anxious. Obviously they are upset. I don't know what's going on in their life. Peace be with them. Namaste. My phrase that I like to use is namaste and walk away. Peace be with you. So there are things that you can do. That is reframing. You do not know what someone else is going through, just like they don't know what you are going through. So let's practice grace on the road. And if you cannot control that car outside of you, you can control you by leaving earlier, by putting on praise music or affirmations or good things to listen to while you are driving, and then by practicing grace and recognizing that sometimes you get a little upset and you might speed too, or sometimes you get a little bit upset and you might accidentally cut someone off. So give the person that grace that you will want somebody to give to yourself. Does that make sense?
Thank you, Jamila, for
no
that
problem.
communication and feedback for things that I be disembarking on when it comes to outgrowing.
Yeah.
As a young lady.
Well, don't get it twisted. I wasn't pointing out you. This is for me too, boo. So yes, I am pointing out how I can be better, and then hopefully you can take some of this and be better too. So I appreciate that. I appreciate you appreciating me.
Yes.
So we're almost at the end of our time. So we've talked about anger, what anger is. We've talked about where it comes from. We've talked about our fight and flight. We've talked about our triggers. And we also talked about how we can cope more effectively, how can we reframe our anger, and how we can respond versus reacting. So again, learning to express our anger constructively without the fighting and the conflict is possible. One way is using I statements. Instead of saying, you made me upset, you are not doing this, you are not cooking and cleaning, you are not doing this enough. You can use an I statement and say, I feel frustrated when I'm the only one cooking. I feel frustrated when I feel like I am just cleaning up this house alone. I feel frustrated